Good afternoon, Zert Nation. ZP002 here. Big day, big day. We wanted to get here and get on here and talk about some of the stuff that came down, when, yesterday? Yesterday from the ATF. I'm here with Aaron.
What's up, Zert Nation?
Aaron is from Alpha Dog Arms, and he has been a friend of mine, and we've worked together for a long time. He actually does all of our engraving for all of the membership cards out there. We do have some benefits with Alpha Dog Arms as far as Zert members getting some discounts on things like slide milling and stuff. And more importantly, Aaron does some stuff as obviously an FFL dealer and is pretty in the know with this new stuff that has come down from the ATF. So I know that he was on the seminar or the webinar that the ATF put on this morning. I jumped on there for a little bit. So we figured we would get together today and see what we can identify or clarify that is coming. We can talk a little bit about what we know, but there's a lot that we still don't know. We sat there today, I was on watching and he was watching, and I think we were messaging back and forth, and questions were being asked, and it was literally the most evasive, avoiding answers I've ever heard of. You ask a direct question and they just say words after you ask the question. And
yeah, a lot of word salad just to avoid any specifics with their answers. And that's kind of typical with the ATF. You know, it's like whenever an FFL even asks the ATF a question, the answer always is, you know what, I'm not sure, let me check and get back to you.
Really?
So yeah, they never give you a clear-cut answer with the first person you talk to, and then weeks later they may come back with some sort of word salad.
They have to find out. They have to go get the answer, which is funny because in that thing today, there was a couple of questions, and they said, well, we recommend you contact your local ATF agent to ask the question, and I don't think you'd get much of an answer anyway. But let's start with...
Not the answer you're looking for.
No,
hey,
not
Mr.
at all.
ATF agent, is this illegal? Yeah, it is.
Exactly, right, yeah. What we do know, right off the bat, is this is a complete violation of the Second Amendment, in my opinion. I think that this is insane, and I cannot believe that we're here right now. You know, there's states out there that have restrictions on top of restrictions, and what you see in front of us was legal 3 weeks ago.
3 days ago.
3 days ago. 3 days ago, as defined by the ATF during another administration, and now all of a sudden it is not. So it's a little bit scary. So what do we know? They made a point to say that this is basically a forbearance period for any firearm with less than 16-inch barrel to be registered, Form 1.
So back up a second, right? So it is a forbearance for any firearm that has a pistol brace on it.
Correct.
So that may be a pistol, it may be an other, like we have in Connecticut, New York, and I think New Jersey also had them for a while. So anything with the pistol brace, they're calling it a pistol brace rule change, but within that, they go ahead and redefine what a rifle is. So that's where it starts to get pretty muddy. People are not sure what they should do at this point. So I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please. I'm glad that you did. And that's the thing. So I think everybody's in the same kind of boat here that nobody knows what to do.
Right.
Right. There are people that immediately went out and they said, okay, well, I have to go register this and get my free tax stamp and.
You know, in places like Florida or somewhere else where it's like there are no assault weapon bans, that could be a very effective option.
Sure.
It's like, oh, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'll do the free Form 1. I'll have an NFA item, whatever.
Right.
But for states like ours,
right,
where we have assault weapons bans, what does it mean? What do people here do?
Right.
I think that's the big question.
That is the big question. And, you know, obviously there is that first initial shock and wave that comes over everybody when they talked about, you know, you had to now go register that an item that wasn't an NFA item. Now you have to go fill out a form, and everybody started kind of panicking and saying, I'm not going to do that. You know, if you've already registered something with the NFA and you just want to continue on with life as you know it, then you continue to do that. If you do not have anything registered with the NFA, then yes, registering something that shouldn't have been registered is now a big, giant.
It's a big commitment.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a big step for your average firearm
Right.
owner who's not used to the NFA process.
And there's just a lot of people who just view it as gross overreach.
Yeah, you're on a list.
Right, you're on a list.
Yeah, so yeah, I understand that completely.
So what we have now is a kind of a waiting period, right? At the end of the day, they said everything went live yesterday. So you have your 120-day grace period from yesterday. A couple other things I got is if you go out today and get all of the pieces to do this, you are not.
So it'd be So in order to take advantage of their 120-day free tax stamp for a short barrel rifle, is what we're talking about, you have to have already previously owned the item in question, a pistol or another with a brace on it. So if you went out today and you bought a receiver, you bought an upper, and you said, hey, I want to make this into an SBR, you fill out your Form 1, you're asking for permission from the ATF in that case. And then, 6 to 12 months later, they'll come back to you and say, oh, yeah, go ahead and make it. Then you can assemble your parts. So they've kind of turned it upside down, though, because now it's like, I've already got this NFA thing. I'm not asking you if I can make it. I'm asking you if I could keep it.
I mean, yeah, or if you'll allow me to keep it. It's horrible. And then it becomes that whole question of, well, how long is that going to take? Because if there is a grace period, and one of the things I kept hearing them say is, if you have filled out your paperwork and sent it in and you're in the 120 days, you're good. Well,
Right.
what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question, because what does that mean? Because you could still get denied.
Right.
We've all heard about this 88-day thing, which they talked about a little bit today. They said, basically it's bullshit. Don't listen to that. And it's like, well, no, it's very valid. The 88 days is from when they start your background check. If they do not finish your background check within 88 days, it's an automatic denial. So that's where the 88 days came from, and people are concerned because, yeah, of course, you've got potentially 40 million of these out there. We talked about this today.
Yep.
40 million of people are affected. They have firearms with braces on it. Let's say best case scenario, they get 50% compliance. In 120 days, that's over 150,000 Form 1s each day for 120 days.
Right.
I am a little concerned that they may not get through my background check in 88 days when they have that amount. And put it in perspective, what are they doing now with Form 1s? Maybe 1,000 on a good day? You're talking 150,000 potentially a day. It's a lot.
And one of the things I remember them pointing out is they definitely said they prefer the e-form, obviously, because it's faster. Well, I remember hearing that whole e-form being faster thing when I went for my can.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Right. I think Silencer Shop is still saying e-form's approved in 90 days when they know it's not true. So it's
there's no 90 days about it.
No,
so,
you're 8 to 10 months.
Right. And I think even when you asked that question, they responded with other resources.
We're adding resources.
Adding resources to make sure that we mitigate that time. To which I responded, well, what resources? Because again, they're just giving you a generic box cookie cutter answer. I said, well, what resources and where is that funding coming from? Because, who obviously we know who's paying for it, but it doesn't smell right, and it sucks.
Well, let's get into what they're saying, right? So. Basically, if you have the firearm with a pistol brace, you have options. You don't have to do the Form 1. So
outside of certain states.
Outside of certain states. How do you want to talk about it within Connecticut, since that's where we're located right now?
We can talk about it in Connecticut, but obviously, this is going to go out to the entire ZERT network, so we should just touch on a couple of things. So let's go outside of Connecticut first. Yeah. So should you have outside of Connecticut this type of configuration, which is a barrel less than 16 inches with a brace and a foregrip.
Not necessarily with a forebrick.
No.
A forebrick. So it could be an AR pistol. I mean, a lot of AR pistols, they have little shorty 10-inch barrels or even shorter, and they've got a pistol brace. So if you have one of those, your first option is you just do the Form 1 and then
Right.
register as an NFA item.
Yep.
And then eventually you'll get a tax stamp. Now you have an NFA item, and it's considered a short barrel rifle at that point. It's no longer a pistol. So
And just let me chime in there. And at that point, once you have that, you can then remove said brace and put on any buttstock you want.
that's correct. That's correct. So option 1, you fill out the Form 1. Option 2, remove the brace. You remove the brace completely. And a lot of people, can you remove that one easily, Chris, or no? Yeah. If you remove the brace on an AR platform, you still have this buffer tube sticking out. And that was a cause of concern for a lot of people because they worded it in such a way that they're talking about surface area behind the receiver that could be used as a buttstock. They said very specifically on the call today that this raw buffer tube is not considered for use on the shoulder. So you could remove the brace, you could leave the buffer tube hanging out, even if it is a mil-spec one, which has the different positions for your stock. This configuration is not a rifle yet. However, the other thing you would have to do is if your barrel is less than 16 inches, you have to replace it with one that is 16 inches. So this complicates it a bit, right? So in order to keep it not a rifle, you have to have it at least 16 inches. Did I get that right?
Well, no, because it could, you could,
This would just be a pistol.
this would just be a pistol.
Just a pistol.
Right.
Okay, so I jumped ahead to Connecticut. I'm sorry.
Right.
So yeah, so this is still a pistol. Remove the brace. It's just a pistol. You can't have anything back there basically to keep it as a pistol. So that's option 2.
Correct, option
Okay.
2. Option 3 is to remove the barrel, which is under 16 inches, or the upper, and put on
A longer.
a longer barreled upper. So a 16-inch upper receiver, or a 16-inch barreled upper receiver.
So
And at that point, could you then have the brace on? Well, at that point,
no.
it wouldn't matter. You could just put a...
the brace forever now will be considered a buttstock. So if you put a buttstock on anything, it will either be a rifle or a short barrel rifle, is what they were saying.
Yeah.
So the length of the barrel, I'm trying to remember why that comes into play. It might be an overall length issue. I'm not sure. There was other criteria they talked about.
Right.
The length of pool, eye relief for
Right.
an optic. Those things come into play for them to determine whether it's an SBR or whether it's actually a pistol
Yeah.
or something other.
Guys, I mean, at the end of the day, I know I walked out of that with more questions than answers, with more of a, okay, what's next type situation. And obviously, from that standpoint, what's next because of the state of Connecticut, right? So let's just talk a little bit about the state of Connecticut.
You're screwed. We're done.
He's not wrong.
No, unfortunately, I mean, that's basically what they said. They wouldn't comment specifically on any state's assault weapons ban. All they said was, if you are in a state that has an assault weapons ban and they ban a rifle, then there is nothing you can do other than destroy your firearm, ship it out of state, or turn it into the ATF. Those are your 3 options.
Right. So great options, right?
But there is a third option that we believe, and that's the 16-inch barrel.
The 16-inch barrel, right. So, and I know that there's still some people that the ATF did another one of those webinar things at 2 o'clock today. I know that there's a couple more people that are probably watching that and asking some questions. There will probably be more questions that are asked. What you see in front of us is referred to as an other. And you want to give a little bit of an information?
Yeah, so in Connecticut, because we had the assault weapons ban, there were some crafty people that looked at the federal law who defined a rifle and a pistol with certain characteristics, and then found that there was a gray area in between. A pistol was something that had a barrel length of less than 12 inches. A rifle had 16 inches or above. So the others that we have, like the one in front of us, has a barrel length over 12 inches but under 16, and a vertical foregrip. The vertical foregrip makes it intended for two-hand use, not to be shouldered necessarily, not to be shot with one hand, but to be used with two hands. So it fell into this kind of gray area that everyone started developing these products around. So now the federal law has changed to where everything under, I believe, 18 inches or 16 inches, did they say 16 or 18? Under 16,
16.
is, how did they define it? They said that 16 or under is an SBR if it has one of these on it. So even if, I think even if we took that off, they considered it an SBR. I don't know, it's just so confusing. I can't remember specifically, but and other was created to fall in the gaps there. Connecticut's assault weapons ban defined an assault weapon as a pistol, a rifle, or a shotgun. It did not define
Keep going.
firearms in any other category. So that's where the others came from. It was developed out of a gray area to kind of skirt both federal and state law. Now that the feds have redefined what a rifle is, it certainly complicates things for us in Connecticut. We cannot register it as an SBR on a Form 1 because that's a short barrel rifle, which is defined in the assault weapons ban.
Right.
So they said flat out they would not approve any Form 1s from an individual in a state that has an assault weapons ban.
Right.
So we're out of luck there.
We're
option one.
We're out of luck with option one. We're out of luck with option two because AR pistols are also fall under that.
Correct.
Ban.
Correct. It can't be a pistol,
Right.
Because that is also banned in the statute in Connecticut.
And then we can't take this other and convert it to a SBR by their new standards. And the third and final option is you can't even remove this shorter barrel and put a 16-inch barrel upper on it because it falls under the...
We think, right? So if it was 16 inches, I think it's 16 inches. The federal rule now says it's a rifle.
Right.
But the state law says otherwise. So
Right.
it's happened before,
Right.
right? We have state and federal law that's in conflict. These two organizations, they don't talk to each other at all.
No.
And yeah, it's I wish we had something better to say.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
I hope that we're putting out some information that obviously you can kind of pick and pull and see what makes sense. Obviously, if you're not in Connecticut, you don't have to worry about this whole other section. You have those first three options that we talked about, and you can make the decision on what you want to do from this point on. I am sure that there is going to be, I think there's already been lawsuits filed in Texas.
I think there's 4 of them now.
In Texas or?
2 in Texas, 1 in like Wisconsin or something perhaps. And I think Gun Owners of America is also getting ready to file.
Okay, so lawsuits are obviously going to be filed. What does that mean? Well, it really doesn't mean much else until it gets to the higher
courts, right. So, the attorney just explained this to me today. He said that the Texas one is likely going to be, what do they call it? The judge will rule that it's invalid. So in the 5th district, it will be enjoined. That's the word I was looking for, sorry.
Okay.
So enjoined in the 5th, that's fantastic for the people that live in that district. We do not in the Northeast. I think we're District 2. So if a judge enjoins it in the 5th district, then that can be used as precedent in other districts for other lawsuits. And I think that could be what's going to happen in ours, is they're going to wait for a more gun-friendly district to rule against it. They'll use that as precedent in our district. But what we're really talking about is time.
Time.
It's just going to take a while. I mean, it's not going to be heard right away.
So the likening story that's happening is obviously the bump stock thing. The bump stock thing was overturned, right? But that bump stock happened in what, 16, 17?
It was during the Trump administration. I mean, he's been gone for a while.
So let's just say it was during 2017 or even 2018, right around there. You're talking 5 years, 6 years. That's a long time, you know. Granted, it's back the other way, so bump stocks are fine now.
But the bump stock companies are out of business, and everybody that had them probably turned them in, a good portion of them.
Right.
So damage is done.
Right.
And maybe that's what they're really just hoping for.
Hoping to just to cut deep enough where it really, you just never heal from it, and that's also upsetting. But yeah, it's a game of a waiting game now.
Yeah.
The one option, obviously, that is here in Connecticut we have not talked about is the pre-ban, the pre-94 situation there.
Yep.
So that's still an option for anybody in Connecticut. If you have one, then make sure you reach out and figure out what you can do there. But at the end of the day, it's infuriating. I know for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other people out there. When you have an organization that just makes a rule, and we're left with this kind of mess, it's upsetting. I don't remember who I was. I think I was talking to you or somebody about it, but and I think somebody else said this on one of the other videos that's already been out. And obviously, guys, there's going to be a lot of these out there. So make sure you watch them. Take certain things from it, take certain things from this, but come up with your own path forward. If I can put that in the best light. And
it probably should be said, I mean, we're not offering legal advice.
No.
I mean, if there is a serious question about legality, you've got to contact someone local to you who understands your local laws.
Local laws, and who also understands Second Amendment laws. Like I would not just call a random attorney for this. Obviously, reach out and find a 2A attorney. But where I was going with that is there's a lot of folks that may have bought one of these 4 months ago because it was the cool thing when they went into their gun store that they go in every 6 months, and they're not on social media and they're not watching YouTube. And they may not be in the know about this because it's not being talked about in mainstream media.
Yeah, my neighbor was at the house the other day when you were over.
Oh, yeah.
And he had no idea about it. He's not
Yeah.
a huge gun guy, but he
Right.
bought another, and he's like, how would I have ever even known about this?
And that's what's scary.
Yeah,
Like, that's
very.
what's really scary.
It's 120 days is not a very long time for someone to become aware of something that's this significant if they're not really following it closely.
Yeah. So that's that's one thing that was brought up. It's like there might be people that are not really following this. They're not in the know, and then 121 days later, they are now in some pretty big trouble.
So Chris, let's talk about what if someone has one of these things. I was asked, well, can I just sell it to you as an FFL?
Right.
And the answer is no, unfortunately. No. So they covered this in detail today.
And more importantly than that is if I had given this to you to do some work on, and this was in your book.
Yeah, my gunsmithing book. If you brought it in for Cerakote and it was in my gunsmithing book, I would not be allowed to give it back to you.
Right. So that's gone at this point. Whatever was spent on this, if it is not in your possession at this moment, is now gone.
Yes.
Or can it be given back without? Like the brace has to be removed, or is that just another question that doesn't have an answer?
I don't really have an answer to that. They said on the call today that a dealer or an FFL who has these hanging on the walls, pistols, they were talking about pistols, they could remove the brace and sell that as a pistol. However, for what we have in front of us here, I don't know if that is the case, because we can't have pistols. If you remove that and they consider it a pistol still, that's problematic here. It seems like they also said, someone asked a question about receivers. If an FFL received a receiver that was fully built up with a brace on it, but no upper, are we allowed to transfer that to an individual? And the answer was yes, because it's still just a receiver. It isn't built into a pistol, a rifle, or an other yet. So there could be something there if you have one by removing the upper, selling the upper, giving it to a family member, just as long as you do not have both pieces in your house.
Yeah.
That is, what do they call it, constructive? something or other?
I don't know. One of the words that they kept using and they kept talking about because questions were answered, and they talked about intent, and that really pisses me off. Like
Constructive
that really,
intent. I think
constructive
that's-
intent. Like that really rubs me the wrong way. You know, I mean, there's. This isn't Minority Report. It's not what people are going to do in the future. And they talked about if you remove this, you have to keep it someplace separate than this, because if it's close to it, then you can intend to put it together.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just really grasping at straws. And I know that intent is used often in the legal world, but to me, that's a little bit obnoxious.
Yeah, they've used that for a while with FFLs. It's if even if somebody has a tube and then the baffles that aren't even cut,
Oh, right.
They could be in violation of NFA law because they have the parts to make a suppressor and they intend to make it one day, which is
Which is
ridiculous.
ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
how do you even go down that route? They talked about FFLs, like you can still sell somebody a pistol brace, and you can still sell them an upper receiver and a grip. But if it's all in one sale, then it may not be. You may have.
I mean, adding to that, it's like from an FFL standpoint for gunsmithing purposes. I don't know if you even know this, but if an individual comes to you and says, "Here's all these parts, please assemble it for me," we can assemble it for them. But if they come to us and say, "I just have a low receiver, could you just buy all the parts and build it for me?" That is manufacturing. We as an FFL, you have to have your 07 license. You have to go in a manufacturing log. We have to serialize it and maker marks and everything.
So you can assemble every part if I bring you every part.
Correct.
But I can't bring you one part and say, "Hey,
Correct.
can you buy the rest and put it
I am
together?"
then the manufacturer. And then for manufacturers, 07 manufacturers, once you reach 50 pieces made in a single year, you pay an excise tax of 20% on each one of them from the first one. So at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's all about the money.
The money.
It's all about
is.
the money.
I mean,
It's,
huge cash grab, which you would say, well, no, because they're giving you a tax stamp. I mean, no, I think it's still, because remember, it's 120 days.
120 days for you to file.
To file. 125 days later, you have this. It's an SBR, and you're paying a tax stamp for $200.
So, I mean, what are the violations for being in possession of an illegal illegal NFA item? It's up to 10 years in prison with a $250,000 fine.
Right.
Now, does anybody actually get prosecuted at that amount? I have no idea. I don't ever want to.
And I don't want to know that either. I mean, that's not something that you really want to mess around with. But
chances are, if you're just some hood rat and you get caught with one, they'll sweep it under the rug. But if it's you or I or one of the desert members, you're going to be in Guantanamo Bay or something.
They'll castrate you. Listen, guys. I wanted to put this out. Obviously, I knew this thing kind of hit yesterday. I've been talking to Aaron about it. We've gone back and forth, and obviously he's very much in the know on getting as much information as possible because we need to get it out. He's getting calls. I know that some of this stuff has been out on some of the pages. I know that it was talked about through some of the state moderators because they're probably getting questions. So it was important for me to get this information out and to have Aaron here with me so we get as much factual information out as we can. There's a lot that's going around. There's a lot of rumors. There's a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of speculation. And unfortunately, we can't clear up all of it. We can clear up a few things that we took from today's webinar. But last week when somebody asked me, I said, it hasn't made it to the register yet, so hold the line and see what happens. There's a chance it doesn't get there. But it did. It got there, and now we're on the clock. So to me, it's still a kind of wait and see decision.
We have to see how it unfolds. I mean, if you're in a state where you're thinking it's like, I don't care if I have an NFA item, just move forward with the Form 1. That's no big deal. But for people, behind the Iron Curtain of Connecticut, we need to wait and see how it pans out.
Right.
It's still too soon to say.
Yeah.
And while I'm looking at this, I got to say one last thing. A lot of people have asked about optics. If I have an optic on it, it makes
right.
an SBR, and that's not necessarily the case. They said today that it has everything to do with eye relief. So if the eye relief is such that you have to be tucked and shouldered to be able to see properly through the optic, SBR. Doesn't matter if it's if it's under 16 inches, it's an SBR. If the eye relief is such,
What if it's over 16 inches and you still have to? Is it?
it's a rifle.
It is a rifle. Okay.
No, it's a rifle.
So see how clear that is?
Yeah, as mud. So so that was to answer the optic question that I've been asked a couple times. Is if it has an optic, it's considered a SBR. That's not necessarily the case.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll wrap this up just because, again, we can continue to talk in circles, much like the ATF did today, and end up getting nowhere. We wanted to get out as much information that we could, that we were able to kind of decipher, but there are more questions. We will try and provide more answers when we know more. So stand fast, and we will see what comes out of this. What do you think?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Thanks for being here.
All right, brother.
All right, ZP0. All right, Zert Nation. ZP002 out. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
It was all right.
Yeah.
A lot of rambling, but who fucking cares?
Yeah, but that's all that matters.
Right.
I mean, it's
God,
just
this is-
talking and. Oh, we got 31 minutes.